Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's edition of The Watch Club. We're the monthly filmmaker interview series of the Newburyport Documentary Film Festival. I'm Program Director James Sullivan. We're brought to you, as always, by the Ford Hall Forum, which is the longest continually operating public lecture series in the country. We thank them, as always, and thank you for watching and for your donations. Don't forget to subscribe and like our YouTube channel so you can get updates on our monthly interview series. We're here today with Allison Argo, who is the writer and producer of Tusker, Brotherhood of Elephants, which has just recently premiered on the PBS Nature series. We are excited to talk to Allison in part because she is a Newburyport alum. She has shown another great film of hers a few years ago with us that we'll talk about in a minute. Tusker is about huge bull elephants in Africa that are called tuskers because they have tusks that weigh at least 100 pounds each. So these are seriously impressive species, and we look forward to talking to Allison about her time spent with them. Let's take a quick look at the trailer for Tusker, and then we will be right back with Allison.
In East Africa, living legends stroll the grasslands. They're called tuskers, rare and threatened by human greed. 3 of these special tuskers face an uncertain future, but they are backed by a brotherhood, 60 tons strong.
Welcome to the Watch Club, Allison Argo. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for weathering the storm. Those of you who are watching might know that we were scheduled to speak with Allison last week. Mm-hmm. Allison lives on Cape Cod, and those who are in the Northeast know that we all got slammed with a huge blizzard last week, and you were out of power and Wi-Fi for days, right?
We were for days, and then my brother, I think it was 5 days. Wow. And it's tough when it happens in the winter and you're buried under the snow. Sure. But you don't have to worry about your groceries spoiling because you just put them in the garage.
I guess that's true. Okay, so there's that. Anyway, thanks for rescheduling and being with us.
Thank you.
I'm an elephant fanatic, and I know we have a lot of wildlife lovers in our audience in Newburyport, so we're excited to talk to you about this. But you have such a long history with nature documentaries, so I guess let's start with this one, but talk about some of the other ones. Actually, let's start with there. Can you tell me where, like, you just said you're an elephant person, but you kind of love all wildlife, I think, right?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Like, start there. Like, how did you end up making your career primarily about filming animals in the wild?
Well, yeah. Oddly enough, I mean, I wasn't raised around animals. We had a family dog, and we, had squirrels and chickadees in the backyard, and that was kind of my exposure. But I grew up in a little summer stock theater in Orleans, and I just think I gained this this sensitivity for the underdog just through watching dramas and Tennessee Williams, and I went into acting originally, and I guess it was in my early 30s. Diane Fossey's work, she was out in the wild studying gorillas in the wild, and her work started coming, her findings started coming back in, and we realized just how extraordinary gorillas are, and it really changed what we knew about them. And I started looking around me at gorillas in captivity, and they were not being cared for in a way that reflected what we were learning about them in the wild. And so for years, I kept saying, boy, I really need to make a documentary about gorillas in captivity. And finally, I just put one foot in front of the next and did it. I didn't know what I was doing, but it took me 3.5 years to make my first documentary. But really the motivation was, for me, a turning point was when I heard about a gorilla and then met a gorilla named Ivan, who was living in Tacoma, Washington, in a crappy little shopping mall. And it was perfectly legal.
Mall.
Yep. and he was a beautiful silverback gorilla. He hadn't seen another gorilla for nearly 25 years, or the sun, or felt the grass. And it was such a crime, and again, perfectly legal. And so that became sort of the centerpiece of the film. And once the film came out, it kind of ignited this outcry against his conditions, and the store went bankrupt, and he was finally sent to Zoo Atlanta, which wasn't the wild, but he was
Better
able to
than
be with
shopping.
other.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
So after that, you can imagine that it was like, oh my God, I can make this impact on another, on a human. I mean, a being's life. I mean, a non-human being, it doesn't matter. All living beings, deserve to lead decent lives, especially those that we take out of the wild and put in captivity.
I'm pretty fascinated that you just said that you kind of sided with the underdog in the theater world that you grew up in.
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about, animals are underdogs compared to their human overlords, basically, right? Like, I mean, we decide if we want to put an ape in a shopping mall, and there's not much they can do about that, right? So
Exactly.
I mean, they're definitely underdogs.
Yes, to me, they are the ultimate underdogs and marginalized beings, and I think our society is just a little slow to realize that and to provide what they deserve.
Well, for whatever reason, elephants, I know from some experience that the elephant community, people who are advocates for elephants, among which we have, actually, let's do that now, Steve. We have, I think we might have a viewer here from Massachusetts for Elephants, Mass for Elephants. Sally,
wonderful,
maybe with us today. She wanted to make sure that we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged her after she responded to our call to see if she was interested in watching the interview. But so organizations like Sally's, I think we know, have done great advocacy work for elephants, in particular among the rest of the wildlife world. Obviously, we have sort of, cat and dog rescues and that sort of thing, but I think elephants might be near the top of the list of other wildlife species that caring humans do care for. I always think of elephants as like big dogs, like they seem to have the same kind of, like, they have personalities, and they, do you feel that's true? And do you feel like that might be why human beings are maybe particularly committed to, or some human beings may be particularly committed to, helping make life better for elephants in the wild, both in the wild and in captivity?
Oh, absolutely. Elephants are incredibly deep and charismatic, and I truly think in many ways that species is more intelligent than our own. I definitely believe that they have greater communication skills than our species has. I have such deep respect for elephants, and the relationships and the bonds that they form, I think, run even deeper than our own. So it can be really heartbreaking to see I actually made a film about elephants in captivity a number of years ago called The Urban Elephant. And again, it's just criminal to see, especially a female elephant living alone in captivity. That's not the way they live. They live in these huge matriarchies that they have lifelong relationships. But what's really interesting,
the males often go off by themselves, right? They're loners, or can be, but the females stay with all the females and the babies, right?
Yes, but what's interesting, and what this film really brought to light, is that there's sort of a misconception that they go off by themselves. They do between certain years, they start to leave their natal families. But if they're lucky, they will find a male group, a bachelor group.
Right.
And that's when they're not in must. They have a very strong social grouping with their pals. Some of them have been friends since childhood.
Yeah.
And these bachelor groups are really, really important. And they also, the older bachelors, the older males, really, really help guide the younger ones that have just recently left their families, and mentor them and teach them where the resources are, where water is, the things that the knowledge the families would have provided, but now the older males are providing. It's fascinating.
And there's great footage of them sort of like teaching each other how to fight, but like play fighting, like
Yes.
wrestling, and how to do it, how to confront one another, but, in a playful way. Really amazing stuff. Do you think that your group, so tell me a little more about the sort of behind the cameras look at what you were doing, Allison. You're out there in Kenya, right?
Yeah.
In Amboseli National Park, right?
Exactly.
And, you're pretty, I mean, I'm sure you had long lenses, but you're still pretty close up to the elephants, right? I mean, did you
Yes.
feel like you got better access to them than you had ever had besides the ones in captivity that you filmed for this film?
Absolutely. We paid a great deal of money for permits to be able to drive off-road. Of course, it's very strictly
Regulated,
very,
yeah.
very strict rules, but we were able to drive off-road, and they trusted us. They're very accustomed, especially in Amboseli,
Yeah.
to the researchers and their vehicles. Now, we could not get out of our vehicle. That is a definite no. So
Yeah.
we never left the vehicle. And as long as you're in the vehicle, that you're not as a threat. And so, like, one of the photos that you're showing is of Craig, who is just a
Right.
legendary elephant who we recently lost.
Oh.
And he was just so mellow. He was so accustomed to vehicles and the guards, the rangers being around, that he just would go about his grazing and just ignore us completely.
How old was Craig? I'm so sorry to hear that he's passed on. Did he live a full life?
Yes, he was nearly 55, I'm pretty sure. 54,
which is about
55.
That's like old age for an elephant, right?
It's pretty old, yeah. The beauty is that these are behind the scene shots for people. The beauty is that he died of natural causes.
Yeah.
Because he was in his older age, and this is what you learn through the film, because you meet these three different elephants at three different stages in their lives.
Right.
He really didn't take a lot of risks. He wasn't in the best, the strongest of physical states, and so it's just brilliant that he was not killed for his ivory.
Yeah.
He was not poisoned with poison spears. He wasn't raiding crops, so that put him in less danger than some of the other elephants. Big problem right now is not so much the ivory trade, but it's conflict with humans, because the land is being severed. Their migratory paths are being cut.
And that's discussed in the film too, how they're getting sort of cut off from their own migratory path, right?
Yep, and they cannot survive without being able to find the resources that they need, the water, I mean, they eat they're vegetarians, but they have to eat a tremendous amount to stay alive. So they have to follow the seasons, they have to follow the resources. And if their migratory paths are cut off, they're not going to survive.
We know, how much poachers, covet their ivory, the tusks. What happens when Craig passes away with the tusks? Does anybody do anything with them, or are they not, is it, forbidden,
it's totally illegal in Kenya.
But they do.
I don't actually know. They probably keep it in a repository.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll put them in a museum. I don't know, but they don't want to put value on tusks. They don't want, but right across the border from Amboseli, in the Amboseli ecosystem, right across the border in Tanzania, it is legal trophy hunting is legal. And one of our elephants, this one right here that we're just looking at, Esau, his bachelor group is across in Tanzania, and they were really terrified that he was going to cross the border and get blown off, get killed by
Yep.
by
Right.
trophy hunters.
Right.
And so they ended up, he got in a fight and got a terrible gash on his
Oh, right. Yeah.
trunk.
Right.
And then he walked across the border to Tanzania, which was absolutely frightening because he was weakened and going across the border. When he crossed back, and it is quite possible that he crossed back to Kenya. And here's Craig right here.
Yeah.
It could be that he crossed back to Kenya to seek help because they did knock him down and treat his wound, which was life-threatening. And they put a satellite collar on him so that he would be obviously a study animal, and the trophy hunters wouldn't see him as a trophy, would leave him alone, would know that it's hands off.
Didn't know that he was being monitored. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have to ask, they're such great names. Craig, that cracked me up that the elephant's name is Craig, and then Esau and Pascal, right?
Yes.
So who names the elephants?
It's the Amboseli Trust for Elephants, ATE, another incredible group. I have to give a shout out for ATE, Save the Elephants, and also Big Life Foundation is doing amazing work creating wonderful corridors for the elephants and trying to mitigate the conflict between humans and elephants. But so ATE has been studying these elephants for over 50 years, and they name the elephants. And sometimes, they have to find funding to be able to survive. And so sometimes they sell, somebody will make a donation and get to name an elephant.
Rights,
so
right? Yeah.
It comes from different, the names come from different places, but
obviously, given the three that we got to know in this film. Craig,
and they're all the three of them are utterly unique.
Totally different, yeah. Right. Steve just ran the crawl for questions. If anybody who's watching live wants to ask Allison a question, all you got to do is type it into the chat, and I will rephrase it for Allison. But in the meantime, I want to ask you a little bit, if I can, about The Last Pig, which is actually, before I ask you that, I want to ask you this: how many nature films have you made since you made the first one about Ivan the gorilla in the shopping mall?
So when you say nature films, not just films for the nature series, but films about nature.
Oh, right. Yes, correct.
I think it's been like 18, 18, something like that. It is it's my life's path. It's my mission. But before we move on, I have to give a shout out to the crew.
Sure.
Because nobody makes a film by themselves. And I had a great crew, Bob Poole, incredible cinematography, and Gina, his wife, and Tom, second camera. They were terrific. And I also have to say that Amboseli Trust for Elephants made it possible. And also the Big Life Foundation are tremendous. And so thank you to these people.
Yeah, of course. We do have a question. Keith is asking, can you recommend a safari? That's a good question. I mean, you've been there.
Well, Keith, here's the thing. If you're a photographer, I would suggest we worked with a gentleman named Eric Ole Kalama, and he's in the behind the scenes. And he and his wife, who's from Belgium, they created a camp. And he caters especially to photographers, and he knows the park. He grew up there. He's native right there, and so he knows all the elephants, and he works with photographers, so he will get you the very best shots you can imagine.
Oh, great.
Aside from that, I was so privileged. That's the thing is when I go back to Africa, unless I make another film in Amboseli, I'm going to be looking for a safari guide too. I got that beautiful privilege to get off-road, but
we actually have a second question. This is Sally from Mass for Elephants.
Hi, Sally.
And Sally wants to know, what's the biggest threat facing the super tuskers and elephants in general right now?
Yeah, I think it's and from what I observed and what have been told by the experts, it's human elephant conflict,
Yeah.
and uh, farms are being it's very complex. The government decided that the Maasai are pastoral, and they live on communal land, but the government decided that everybody should own their own land.
Mm.
And so land started being sold off and carved up and sold to people who come in and do farming. And so that's a huge problem. Elephants are killed in the conflict. They're, hit with poison arrows and spears,
Because they're
not arrows.
wrecking property, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
rather than
they're
sharing the land
competing.
with
Yeah.
the Maasai, right? Yeah.
So that's a big, big problem.
Mm.
That's the biggest problem right now.
Mm.
And their corridors being cut off. It's a huge, huge problem.
Mm. Right. So I want to ask you a question or two about The Last Pig, because we showed that here in Newburyport about 8 years ago. Can you tell, for the benefit of folks who haven't seen it or weren't with us, didn't come to the festival that year or whatever, or explain the story to us and tell us where can people still see that? Because that remains a festival favorite. We're going into our 22nd year, and that's still one of
Wow.
our favorite, most memorable films. Yeah. So
Oh,
tell us
that
a little
makes me
more.
that makes me really, really happy. Thank you. You can still see The Last Pig at thelastpig.com.
Oh,
Go
okay.
to
Yeah.
the it says watch, and then it's available for rent on Vimeo.
Mm-hmm.
It is the story of a pig farmer who, after 10 years of raising pigs for slaughter, and he was a humane pig farmer. I
Yep.
mean, it sounds like an oxymoron, but he treated them incredibly well and would take them in very small numbers to the slaughterhouse. But after 10 years, he realized that they were as intelligent as his
Yeah.
dog who slept in his bed.
Right.
And he said, it no longer makes sense to me to eat the pig and not the dog. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to eat either.
Mm-hmm.
And so the film is really it's his stream of consciousness, and it's beautifully shot by Joe Brunette. Um and it's almost like you're in his shoes, but almost like you're in his head too,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing this final year of pig farming. And the herds get smaller and smaller on his farm, and it was just sort of magical the way the seasons sort of
Yeah.
worked with that. It
Mm-hmm.
was coincidentally, it became winter, and when things got really tough and only a handful of pigs left, and he had to he took the last pigs to slaughter. He tried to find refuges, and he was able to place 8 pigs
Mm.
at sanctuaries, but um it was it's a beautiful film,
It is.
but very difficult to make,
Mm.
emotionally difficult. And we shot in the slaughterhouse. It's not graphic. I was very, very
Right.
careful in the edit but sometimes, just seeing the pig in the holding pen while you hear the noises in the abattoir are just as disturbing as seeing something graphic. It's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I just clicked that by accident,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Oh,
Sally has another question.
yeah.
Is Tanzania still offering trophy hunting licenses? Who are the
I
biggest
bel
stakeholders in protecting the super tuskers? Amboseli, Kenyan
Yes, it
Wildlife
would.
Service. Yep.
Kenya is definitely protecting the super tuskers. Kenyan Wildlife Service, yes. Amboseli Trust, Big Life are huge. Save the Elephants. Uh, Actually, the Sheldrick Trust for Elephants. And forgive me if I'm forgetting anybody, but
Mm.
these groups are fantastic, and they have really turned life around for these magnificent animals. What were you
So
going
as
to say?
Sally's asking here at the end of her question, how can folks help as individuals, besides obviously financially supporting all the organizations that you're talking about?
Yes, well, you will find places to write letters. I know that I signed petitions. I think Joyce Poole started a petition and Amboseli Trust for Elephants to Tanzania, asking that they outlaw, they don't offer any more trophy hunting licenses. And the argument in Tanzania is, it's American billionaires who are going over there and buying these licenses. And they say, well, that's supporting conservation, but write a check, don't go over. And also I think it may still be legal to bring these trophies into the United States. I'm not absolutely certain of this, but that should be illegal.
Yeah. Right.
We shouldn't allow that. The dentist, remember the dentist who shot Cecil the lion?
Yep.
Cecil, that was just so unconscionable. So, yeah, that's what I would do. I did sign that petition. It may still be floating around.
Okay.
Elephant Voices is Joyce Poole's organization. That's also excellent. And probably on her website, there probably is how you can help. I would go to all of these groups and I bet they have how to help.
Excellent. Yeah.
Tabs.
Thank you for answering that. And thanks for the questions, Sally.
Yes.
I have one last question for you, Allison. And it has nothing to do with elephants or Ivan the gorilla.
Okay.
Through the magic of Wikipedia, as I was preparing to talk to you, I found out that, you mentioned summer stock and doing, kind of growing up in the theater world. You were on WKRP in Cincinnati?
I was. Yes. I went from summer stock. I decided it was the obvious road for me because that's what I knew best. So I moved to New York with $100 in my back pocket, and I walked dogs and waited tables, and finally got an agent. And started, and did eventually three plays on Broadway, a soap opera, and then I moved to LA, and I started doing movies of the week and an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati, which was such an adorable show. So I played Gary Sandy's younger sister.
Okay.
That was in my past.
Saw it. I loved that show. I probably saw that episode.
That was my past life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're glad you moved on to this newer life.
Thank you.
And keep making the great films. We were talking before we got started that you have a couple more coming, so we look forward to hopefully having them in Newburyport sometime soon. And it was really nice to talk to you and about Tusker and about your whole career. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. That's me and Craig, by the way.
Yeah.
What a privilege.
Great. That's great.
Thank you so much. I love your film festival, and thank you very much for having me.